everyone. I wanted to create this video to maybe help with some of the formatting issues that you might have with Excel. Also to show you maybe some shortcuts and some functions of Excel that you could use to make logging every week a little bit easier and take up a little bit less of your time and maybe be a little bit less frustrating. I know you all have a wide range of experience in Excel, so some people have used it for many things and are very familiar, so some of these things might seem a lot easier to them. Excel's not always very intuitive, so if you haven't used it before, it can be difficult to know how to do different functions if someone hasn't shown you. So I just wanted to demonstrate some of the basic techniques that I use whenever I'm logging in Excel. So if some of it's a little too easy for you, then just skip forward to maybe some of the other parts, like the calculations that I'm doing later, that might be more helpful. If you're kind of going through this with me and you're not quite getting all of it, please let me know. Contact me via email, give me a call, or we can set up a time to meet in person so we can go over some of it. For this demonstration, I created an Excel file just to kind of go through you how I might do a typical week's logging. This file has been uploaded onto Canvas. You are welcome to download it and go through it with me as part of my demonstration to make sure that you're following how to do everything okay. Or after you watch the video, you could go through the week log and see if you're able to do it yourself and get the same answers that I did. Or you can just refer back to it and like maybe click on some cells and see how different functions were done and things like that. There's a lot of detail in what I'm showing you, so it might be helpful when watching the video to expand it to full screen so you can see some of the details that we'll be doing. So one of the first things I want to go over is kind of like a formatting issue that's come up. A lot of times people have these extra lines when they're done logging and they get to the end and they have all these extra lines. So I wanted to show you a couple of different things that you can do. One thing you can do is when you come to your last item that you're going to log or activity you're going to log, instead of logging it in the next row here, log it in the last row that's right by the line that is formatted for this. So I'm going to put a log in here. Okay. And now that I've done that, what I would do is I would go back here and I would highlight rows that I want to delete. So when you highlight, you always want to highlight on the far left. If you see where my cursor is here, you want to click and drag down through all the rows that you want to delete. If I was not to go all the way to this far left, right here, then it would mess up the formatting with everything here and to the right. So I want to make sure I'm highlighting the entire row. Then I go up to here where it says delete, and I click delete, and I click delete sheet rows. Okay, so because I did it and I logged it on the last one, it maintains all the formatting. It maintains that border that I have right here. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is what you do. So say you have a border that's missing. So right here we have a border that's missing for week 11, and I want to put that border in. One way I could do this is to highlight where I want the border to go. I would highlight all the way to the far left if I was doing this on a real log that had all that information. But I've highlighted where I want the border to go along the line here. So it'll match up with where the border is over here. So along the bottom. So I go up here to Format, Cells, and then you see they have these different tabs. I want to click on the tab that says Border, and I have the format of line I want to use, and then I click where I want the border to be. So I have this all highlighted, and I want the border to be along the bottom. And then I hit OK, and so you can see that border has been created here along the bottom. So that's one way you can do borders. I could have highlighted below and then placed the border above. That would have worked also. I just want to keep my formatting here consistent with my formatting over here. Something else that you can do, let's say that you, let's see, we have an entry here, and we have extra space down below. Alright, so let's say we have this and we have an extra line. What some people have been doing, and it's perfectly fine and really quick to do this, is just to minimize the height of this last line. So if you go along where the line is and you go between the numbers, see where suddenly you have a line with two arrows, an arrow above and below. That allows you to click and drag, so you can make the height of the row larger, or you can click and drag and really minimize and make the height of the row super small. So if you want to do that for your last line of your week's log, it's completely fine to do that also. Okay, I'm just going to get rid of that for now. Oops. We don't need that. Okay. All right. So I think that we've covered everything that we need to cover for that. I want to show you how to do summing. So one way, we often need to add up many numbers or total numbers in cells. And so, for example, every week we have our total over here for how many hours we have. In order to do that, we use a simple function in Excel called equal sum, and then you do a parenthesis, and then you put in the cell range, and I'll show you how to do that. And then you put an ending parenthesis, and you hit enter. So if I put that in here, it would automatically calculate the total hours for the range I put in. So I'm going to demonstrate. I want the total hours for week 10 over here. Okay, so if I click here, then that's where it's going to put my total, right here. Okay, so I'm telling you to put it here, and then I'm going to go up to this function bar, and I'm going to say, how do you do this calculation? So equal sum, beginning parenthesis, and then see, it's looking for the numbers. Which cells do I want it to total? And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click on the first cell I want to total. And then I'm going to drag with my mouse, keeping it pushed down all the way down to the bottom. Okay? And so that has filled that in and told it I want to total all of these numbers. I put an ending parenthesis and I hit enter. Okay? So then over here, you see it has automatically summed up, giving me the total of all of these hours over here. If I ever want to check and see what it is totaling, so for example right here, if I click on this cell and I want to see what the sum is for, if I click up here in the function, in between the numbers, it highlights the cells. So if I saw something like this, then I would know it's not totaling all of them. And the way to fix that would be to go over where that corner is, see how that cursor changed like that, and then I click down and I drag it so it is covering everything I want it to cover. And then I hit enter. So then it's totaling everything I want it to total. Okay? Alright. I think that's all of the formatting things I have. If you guys are running into the same types of issues with formatting, then let me know and I can do another video or talk to you about how to do that. I did want to show you why that, let me see. I'm going to copy that function up here and put it in here so you guys can see what we're actually doing. So when I talk about cell range, you see this equal sum J178. So this is cell J178 right here. Okay? And then down here is cell J205. So when it says equal sum J178 colon J205, it's summing up everything in that entire range of cells between this cell and this cell right here. Okay? Let's see, I think I messed that up here. Let me do that again real quick. So equal sum, and then work and drag. And it should be 32. Alright. Okay. So now we're getting into the part where we would actually want to do the calculation. We want to summarize and do the calculation for our hours in APPIC and our hours in rGrade, and we'd want to do it by code. So how many total hours in number 2 do we have? How many total hours in 1H1 do we have? You can open another tab and put your information in there in order to do your calculations, but I find I don't like to click back and forth to do that. So what I typically do is just open a new Excel sheet. Okay, so I'm going to do that right now. Alright, so we got a new Excel sheet here. What I want to do is transfer these 3 columns of information over into this new Excel sheet. So I'm going to click on my upper left hand piece of data, and click and drag over 3 columns and all the way down to the bottom. So I've highlighted all 3 columns, and then I'm going to copy this. So I can either go edit, copy, or I can use the shortcut key over here, so the Command C. Okay, so I've got it copied now. I'm going to click over here in this file. I don't want to go all the way to the top or all the way to the left because it makes formatting difficult later. So I just go a couple in. Okay, now I would edit, paste, or I'd use the Command V, which is what I'm going to do now. Okay, so now it's populated everything over here from these 3 columns over here. I don't like these lines in here, so I'm just going to get rid of those lines by going into Format Cell and getting rid of all the borders, just because I find it a little distracting. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to set up, so I do my APPIC summary over here, and I'm going to do my rGrade summary over here. Okay, so I have these hours for APPIC, and then I have my APPIC coding. These hours also correspond to rGrade code. So I'm going to copy, click, and then copy and paste these over here. Okay, and these I want to cut and paste. So I would say edit, cut, or control, or the Command X. So I'm going to use the Command X button and Command V to paste it over here. So now I have the hours in the APPIC code, and then I also have the hours in the rGrade code. What I want to do now is sort them based on, and putting them in order. So I'm going to put all the 2's together, I want to put all the 3A's together, and so on and so on. I want the number of hours to stay corresponded with the correct code. So I don't want to just sort this, I want to sort both of them together. So I'm going to click up here on the B on this column and click and drag. So I'm highlighting both B and C. Okay. Then I go up here where it says sort and filter. I click here and I say custom sort. Okay. So I want it to sort these numbers. I don't want to sort by the hours. I want to sort by the APPIC code. So that's column C. So I'm going to choose column C and then say OK. Okay, so you can see how now suddenly everything that's number 2 is all together. Everything that's 1G5 is together, 1H1, 1H4, and 3A. So it makes it much easier for me to do my totals at this point. There's always going to be a lot less groups with APPIC than there are with rGrade. rGrade, there's going to be a lot more groups. So it sorts it alphabetically and numerically. So if I highlight, so I click on H, I drag over up to I, so I'm highlighting 2 columns. I'm going to go up here again to sort, custom sort, and bring this over. Okay, this time I want to sort by column I, because that's my rGrade code. So I'm going to choose I, and then I hit OK. So again, it's sorted according to code. So R1, A1, and then C1 comes before C5. Here you can see we had a couple that were the same, so R1, B2, C2. and R4A. So they're all in alphabetical numerical order. Okay, now I'm ready to start doing my summary of all of them. Sometimes it's helpful, for demonstration purposes, I'm going to kind of go in here and highlight the things that are alike and different. This might be helpful when you're first starting. You might find it to be time consuming later to do this, but for demonstration purposes I'm going to do this. And actually I already have one already done, so we'll start from that point. Okay, so I've just highlighted the ones that are all the same code. I have highlighted together, and that's going to help me when I start doing my summaries. Okay, I'm going to start here with APPIC. I'm going to summarize all of my support hours, so all my number 2 hours. So I'm going to go in this top cell here, and I'm going to sum these up. So I'm going to use my equal sum. So equal sum, and then parenthesis, and then I'm going to go here and I'm going to click and drag and highlight all of my hours for support hours in parenthesis, and then enter. And so this has summarized all of my 2 hours. Okay, so now I can use my equal sum, but I've only got 2 here, so 1.5 plus 1.5 is 3 total hours, 2.5 total hours of the 1H1, half an hour of the 1H4, and then 3 hours of the individual supervision time, or 3A. Okay, so now you can see if I look at the top of each section, I have a total for each code. Okay. At this point, I always quickly do a summary of all of these hours to confirm that I have 32 total, I've accounted for 32 total hours. So I'm going to say equal sum, parenthesis, click and drag, in parenthesis, and so that gives me a total hours of 32, which is equal to what we see over here. So I've accounted for all of my hours over here. Okay, so at this point I have all of my APPIC hours summarized. So I can go in here to my APPIC tab and I can very easily put these hours in. Okay, so I'm going to start here with 23 hours of support, and I'll make sure I'm on week 10, the week I'm supposed to be on. Oops, I forgot to delete this when I was playing with it earlier. Okay, so I would put 23 hours of support here under 2. Then I go to 1G5, and I'm going to put in on 1G5 3 hours of support. 1H1, 2.5 hours of support. 1H4, 0.5 hours of support. And then 3A is 3 hours of support. Okay, so then my total should be 32, and if I look down here, 32. So I'm confident I have put all these in the right spot and I've accounted for all my hours. Okay, APPIC's a little bit better, easier than rGrade. rGrade's a little bit more complicated. I'm sure you guys have all encountered that. But that kind of gives us a basis for what we're going to be doing over here. Okay. rGrade, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to summarize each one. So this has 1 hour, 1.5 hours, 0.5 hours, 0.25, 1.5. I have lots of different individual things coded here, so it's a little bit more time consuming. So 1.5 plus 0.5, I've got 2 hours, 2.25. Okay, so here's where I'm going to use my sum function. So equals sum, parenthesis, click and drag the hours, in parenthesis, so I have my total for these, 3.5, I'm going to add these up to 3, okay, got 4 hours here, 1.25, 2.25, and 0.5, okay. So if all of these are right and all of these are accounted for, then if I total these up, it should equal 32, like we had before. So let's try that. So equals sum, and click and drag, in parentheses. So I have a total hours of 32. So I feel confident that I've accounted for all of my hours under rGrade. Now what gets confusing under rGrade is when we fill these out, but then we also have to fill out this. So for R1, we also have to fill out the C category. For all R2, we also have to fill out the C category. And for R3, we also have to fill out the D category. Also, we can have several things, under R1A2 that can be accounted for in different codings here. Basically, anything that's accounted for up here also has to be accounted for here. So that's why the total hours here should always equal the total hours here, because all the hours should be accounted for here and here. The same here. All the hours accounted for here, which are summarized here, should also be accounted for here. So this cell should equal this cell. And here, everything that's accounted for in A, B, or C should also be accounted for in the R3D category. So the total here should equal the total here. Okay? Kind of an easy way. It might feel kind of more time consuming at first, but it's more, you're more likely to get the right answer if you do it this way. I do summaries over here on the side. So for R1, there are 5 C categories, okay? So I'm going to put C1, C2, C3, C4, and C5, okay? This might be a little confusing right now, but I think it'll be easier and more apparent. We're going to keep a running total of everything in this subcategory under R1. We're going to do the same thing for R2. If you look over here, R2 has C1, 2, and 3. So we're going to have C1, C2, and C3. Okay, and then we've got the R3 category. So R3. If we look over here, R3 has D1, D2, and D3. So that's what we're going to want to track. D1, D2, and D3. Okay. Sometimes I like to draw I'd like to draw some borders in here to kind of help me separate it in my mind. You guys are welcome to do whatever works for you. So format cells. I'm going to do border. I'm going to do the top for each of those. Okay? So now I have some borders that are kind of separating those for me. Okay? I'm going to move this over. So we're looking just at the rGrade now. Alright? Okay. So here's how we go about putting information over here. We're going to look at all of the R1s. So all of these are R1 items, okay? So every time I have something R1, I also need to code something under C1. So here's 1 hour. We'll start here. Here's 1 hour under C1. I'm going to put that here. That's a C5 item. It has 1.5 hours. I'm going to put that here. Okay? And I'm going to put a little X here just to kind of track which ones I've already put in there. Okay? So my next one is C2. And I have 0.5 hours of C2. I'm going to put that over here under C2. Okay? Okay? This one, we have 0.25 hours under C2. So the next entry under C2 is 0.25. We have 1.5 hours under C3. We'll put 1.5 here. We have another 1.5 under C5. So C5. So I'm going to put 1.5 under C5. We have 0.5 under C1. So another 0.5 under C1. And here we have 1.5 hours under C2. I'm going to put 1.5 hours here. And then another 0.5 hours. 0.5. Okay. And we still got some more R1, so we keep going. This is 2.25 under C1. These are all under C2. So I can put all 4.5 hours of this under C2. Okay. Now we're getting into R2, so we need to stop. So we're stopped here with all of the R1s. Okay. All right. In order to get my total C1 that goes under this R1 category, I'm looking for the C1 here. I would sum up all of these. So I'll say equals sum, parenthesis, click and drag. So there's my sum of C1. I want to do the same thing for each of these categories. Equals sum, click and drag. Okay, so that's my total that will go C2, that will go over here. Okay, this is 1.5, this is 0, and this is 3. Alright, I want to make sure I got all of these and I didn't miss any of them. So I'm going to do a total over here of all of my R1C hours. So I'm going to say equals sum, parenthesis, and click and drag these, in parenthesis, enter. Okay, so I have a total of 15.5 hours. So if I total up all of my R1 here, they should equal 15.5. Let's make sure that happens. Equals sum, click and drag everything that says R1, in parentheses. Okay, so that tells me I've accounted for everything and I have all my totals matched, so I'm good there. So this is an example of one of those. Along the way you can do these little things to kind of foolproof it, and make sure, because if I found out I have the wrong answer here, I can go back and figure out where I missed something. If I don't have to do this, but then if I go and enter these and everything's off, it's going to be harder for me to go back and figure out what I missed at that point. Okay, so let's do the R2Cs again. So again, we're doing R2 and we're doing the calculations for these three right here under week 10. Okay, so we're right here, R2, so we're just going to have these items right here. We're going to have totals for. These are all under C1. So here we have 3.5, and here we have 3. Okay, so we have a total of 6.5 hours, and we don't have any under C2 or C3. Okay, so again, we can do our sum, which is basically 6.5 here, and then I'm going to check across here, and then I'm going to do my calculation to check over here all of my R2s. So click and drag. Okay, and those are equal. So I know that I've accounted for all of the R2s. Okay, we also have 3 R3 codings here. So D1, we have 1.25. D2, for both of these, we have 0.75. Okay, so again, here's our total, 1.25, 0.75. We can sum those up across here, and then we can also, it may not make much sense to do this calculation when there's just a couple that you can kind of add in your head, but later on when you have many under here, it's kind of a good habit to get in. So I've checked here and I've checked here, so we have the same, so we've accounted for everything. Okay, so now that we've done all this, we are ready to go back over here and put all of our logging under week 10 in the rGrade log. So it probably felt like it took a lot of work to do this part, but it's going to make this part a lot easier at this point. So I hope you'll see that. The first thing we're going to log, I'm going to get rid of these just because they're distracting. The first thing we're going to log is the R1, A1, C1. So R1, A1, so we're doing the A1 part. Okay. We're not worried about the C now because we're going to do that later because we have that over here. So we just have to worry about the R1, A1 there. So we have 1 hour here. The next one's R1A1. It's 1.5 hours. So we're going to add that to the hour we already have over here. So we've got 2.5 hours now under R1A1. The next one's R1A2, 0.5 hours. Okay, R1A4, 0.25. R1A4, 0.25. Okay. Now we've got an R1B2. So B2, 0.5. Now we have R1B2, we've got 2 hours here, so we're going to add that to the 0.5 we already have, so we have 2.5 total. Excuse me. Alright, now we have an R1B3, we have 2.25. Okay. And then if we look here, we have another set of R1B3, 4.5. So we're going to add that to what we already have here. So we're going to have, so 4.5, we're going to have 6.75 total here. Okay, so we totaled up, we're missing some hours here. Let's see, 1.5, 2.5, 0.5. R1A3, do we have any of those? No. R1A4, C3, A4 is 3. R1A4, this should be, okay. So here's our problem. We're missing these 3 hours right here. So an extra 3 hours plus the 0.25, so 3.25. Okay. So here you can see where it's good to have this at 15.5, 15.5 check. If I hadn't caught that early on, it would have been a lot harder to figure out later. So I was able to go back and refigure out before I got all the way down to the end and saw that my whole total was incorrect. Now I can enter my C hours, and those are the hours right here. Okay, so for C1, we have, which is right here, C1, we have 3.75. For C2, we have 7.25. For C3, we have 1.5. For C4, we don't have anything. And for C5, we have 3. So we just leave C4 blank and we put 3 here. So this should add up to 15.5, just like here. And this should be equal to this. Okay? So after doing all this work, it's a little bit more time consuming up front, but at this point, I'm very confident that I have these coded correctly. Whereas if I did and just kind of went and added through eyeball or by hand, I wouldn't be quite as confident because I wouldn't have this additional check of this total over here to compare to. Okay, so let's continue logging. We finished all the R1s. Now we're going to go to the R2s. So R2A1, so R2A1 right here, 3.5 hours. R2B3, 3 hours. R2B3, 3 hours. And then we are done with the R2s there. Now we need to fill out the C category for the R2. So we have 6.5 total up here, which matches here. So we also want to have 6.5 total down here. So we have 6.5 under C1. That's going to be pretty easy. So our total here, under C category, row 27, matches our row 19, our total under R2A and B. Okay? So because everything here should be accounted for down here, the total should be the same. Now we have our R3. So we have these 3 items right here. So R3B1, here's R3, B1, 1.25, okay? And R3B1, we've got 2 items here, 0.75, so we're going to add this to here, so we end up with 2 total. Okay, and you can see that total is the same as here. And then we have 1.25, now we're going to fill out our D category. Under D1, we have 1.25 hours. Under D2, we have 0.75 hours. Okay. So our total is 2. Our total is 2 over here. Our total 2 equals our total 2. So at this point, I'm very confident about my R1, R2, and R3 logging. So we just have a couple more items here. R4A is 4. So I'm going to put that in here. And then we have R5B3 is 1.25. R5C3 is 2.25. And R5C4 is 0.4. Okay. Now I want to check and make sure my total of 32 is at the total I have down here. That should be 0.5. Okay, and so you can see our total is 32. So all I have left to do to finish my rGrade, and I notice a lot of people are forgetting to do this, is make sure you have a total here for your homeschool collaboration hours. If it's 0, put in 0, so we have that, but I believe we had some this week, so let's go check and see. So here we have a yes, so we have 1.5 hours, another yes, so a total of 3 hours. Okay, so that's our total. So we go back to rGrade, we put in our 3 hours, and we're done. So this is probably more time consuming than any of the logs you'll have this semester. Once you're doing more hours in the school, you'll start having longer, more complicated logs like these. But that's an example of how you can use this method of doing the calculations within Excel to kind of help figure out, especially how to get those, you know, C's and D's in the R1, R2, and R3 category. I'm going to upload this onto Canvas also, so that you can see how the calculations were done. Again, you can click on cells and you can see the formula up here. So you can see which numbers were added together to get that answer. I just messed that up. In demonstrating, I messed it up. Okay. Alright. I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions about this, or you would like for me to go over anything with you, I'm happy to do that. Just let me know. And again, I'd love to get feedback, what was helpful, what was a little bit too much, what you really didn't understand. I'd love to get that feedback so I can clarify things for everyone. So, thank you. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend.